11 years ago this week, my dad died, and he was terminally ill with cancer, and he'd had it for about 5 years, not continuous. He had it went away for a little while, had it again, treated, went into remission, and then this third time it came back, he was terminally ill. He got the terminal diagnosis in May and then passed away in October after just a slow kind of decline over those months. And his funeral was a very interesting experience. It was at a country Baptist church, maybe had seating for like 200, 250 people. The church was packed, standing room, and then the back doors were open, and in the front lawn, there was even more people there. And it was just a surreal experience. And the reason I want to share these lessons is because my dad, he wasn't a famous person. He wasn't someone with lots of reach. And, especially in this day of media and social media, you can reach a lot. Well, this was before that. And it was just packed. And what was crazy was that these people made the time to be there. And I'll tell you more of the story in a little bit. Even the hour preceding it, the procession, it was wild. And it blew my mind. It was, I expected people to be there, but I didn't expect this type of reaction. And, I want to share some lessons I learned that day because, the truth is I grew up with my dad. I saw his human side, right? So I saw the good things. I saw the bad things. He was a human. But there are some things that I've drawn from his life that have become values for me. And when I see how that day happened, I see that because he lived his life a certain way, he had that type of impact that those people would show up. And so I want to share that, right? So the first thing is that I learned on the day of his funeral is it's all about people. My dad, whenever he worked in X-ray equipment, like installation and service. So rooms with X-ray machines, installed those, serviced those all around the state. He worked for a couple of different companies, but he did that job for 40 some years. And so some of the people that came to the funeral were just people that he showed up and just helped, by servicing their equipment and stuff like that. He volunteered for the rescue squad for 40 some years. He was the chief for 25 years. Volunteer position, didn't get paid anything. And this was South Orange Rescue Squad, which that serviced, University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, all their special events, and then the rural part of the county that we grew up in. And so he was always involved in training, whether that was just basic EMT training or that was technical rescue training, flooding, confined space, stuff like that, cutting cars open and stuff like that. I actually got to do that when I was younger, when I was 15 or 16. That was a cool experience. But and then he was very involved in the church. And he was always about helping people. He just showed up and participated. And the reality is, when he showed up to do it, he, in his mind, and I saw this for years, he was just doing his job. He was just trying to do his job well, but it was about helping people, right? And so whether it was what he did with X-ray stuff, what he did with EMS, what he did with the church, he just showed up to be a helping hand, to be a participant, someone who just wanted to help people. And that has been a big thing for me. I've gone through a lot of experiences in life. Part of this, when I was in drug addiction, right? Coming out of that, just realizing I need to help people. I need to be involved and help people. And in fitness, owning a gym, and now what I do in sales, all of those things. There's the job, the actual work of the thing I do, but then there's the actual helping of the people. Actually looking at this person and understanding how can I help this person. And that's what my dad lived his life doing. And so when the day of the funeral, we left the funeral home, which was only about 8 miles from the church, but it was an hour ride because what we did was we rode around the county, and on every bridge in the county, there was a ladder truck, a fire truck with the ladder raised and the American flag hanging down. And we drove on multiple exits on Interstate 40. This is on bridges on Interstate 40. And so they were raised and we, rode under it, and we were processed. So we were led by a sheriff's deputy, a couple of sheriff's deputies, and we were followed by a couple of sheriff's deputies. And then we went through an hour ride through on the highway. They would close down the entrance ramps. It was wild. And then we would drive by every police station, fire department, and rescue squad station. And they had all the trucks out or the cars out, lights on, people saluting. And this was an hour ride around this part of the county. And then, of course, we get to the church, and there's already a couple hundred people there. It's already full. There's already people standing outside. And it just was wild. I didn't expect that. I knew we were going to, I didn't know what was planned. I just knew it was going to be something, that they were going to try to show some respect. But I didn't realize how many people he impacted. And so when I look at life and I look at like what we do, like everything, every job, every role you can draw out to the 1,000-foot view overhead and say, how can I help the person? How can I help these people? And that's what his life was about. So that was the first lesson I really learned was, man, this is about people. Like a lot of people do that exercise of like, how do what do you want people to say, at your funeral? And for him, like, dude, I mean, a lot of people had good stuff to say, but it was because he helped about people. And I don't think he lived his life thinking, I want thousands of people showing up at my funeral. I think he lived his life thinking, just how can I help this person today? Like, how can I do what I need to do today? Which leads me to point number 2. Consistency is king. So like my dad, dude, woke up at like the same time every day. Didn't matter what time he went to bed at night. Didn't matter if he volunteered a shift at the rescue squad station. Like, and he woke up, he showered, he shaved, he got dressed, wore like the same thing every day. Like he just did this, just consistent, man. And just kind of didn't really matter how he felt. He just followed through with this consistency piece. And that's always been a big value for me. Like I didn't realize it, how much he impressed that upon me, but this just idea of showing up consistently, like showing up ready, showing up prepared, just consistently, like that being the base level of entry is just committing to the consistency of it. And again, the multiple areas that he did all this stuff in, whether it was the rescue squad or it was the church or work or whatever, like he just showed up consistently, and that was something that as I've gone on to like business, sales, just all the stuff that I do doing this, like I realize how important consistency is. And what's interesting that I'm learning as I get older is that consistency also creates the platform for creativity. So like if you're not being consistent, it doesn't create creative moments. A lot of people think creativity is like a spur of the moment thing, or like your best work comes like just all of a sudden, but it's actually in the consistency, right? And my dad was revered as really good at what he did at work and just some of the other things he did, like at the rescue squad. And I think that was built on the platform of consistency. So like I said, when I saw all these people, all the stuff they had to say, all the help, like I know my dad, like I said, he wasn't a perfect human being. So I know like he didn't show up like happy-go-lucky, bubbly, or just like never have a bad day, but he just showed up consistently to do the work that was required. Okay. And then the last one is do the job right. So my dad, like I have this Klein adjustable wrench from like the 80s, and Klein tools are very high quality. They cost a lot more than most other tools. I still have that wrench, right? And so it's 40 years later, still have it. I use it, and it's better than any adjustable wrench I've ever used. And the point is, if you're going to do the job, do it right. And he had this reputation, like, we grew up on an old property working on a bunch of stuff, always building stuff. But like he had this reputation of overbuilding things, like the deck behind my mom's house, like he used 2x10s for the joists. That deck is still standing. It just needs deck boards occasionally, but like it's built so well, like it's survived 30 some years without any like big structural changes. Like it's still good. There's just multiple things he did like that. But like his thing was just do the job right. When we would install x-ray machines, we would use basically like when you install an x-ray machine, you can have a lot of wiring, but he made us like whenever we would do it, we would actually go do all the wiring, and then we would make a wiring harness. We would actually go and zip tie so that the wires neatly moved in the compartments where they need to. And when we cut the zip ties, we would always cut them flush so that the long tail wasn't there, but also it wasn't just like a 1/2 inch piece that you could nick your hands on. And there was times where I didn't do that, and he made me go back and cut those. And at the time I thought I was being nitpicky, right? And there's a bunch of stories I have of this, but as I've gotten older, I'm like, no, like when you do that, it makes everybody else's job behind you easier. And also if you have to come back and work on it again, it makes your job easier. So like it's better to invest the time and energy to do the job right than it is to like just do a hack job when you're doing it. So, and as someone who's in a business and stuff, I believe in implementing quickly, but if you're going to implement, do it right. Like figure out how to do it right and then do it. Speed's cool, but like that doesn't mean you have to forsake doing it properly. So, do the job right. And again, like that's a big thing that people would say about my dad was like he was consistent and he just believed in doing quality work, right? And so as I look back, I reflect. Obviously, I miss my dad. I wish he could be around, because He never got to see his grandkids. He got to see my sister married, but not me. He never got to see the gym be successful. And so I wish he could see that stuff. But like, the truth is, the way he lived imparted stuff to me that I now choose to live. And part of me making this video is just sharing that is, you know, I've had a decent amount of success since getting sober. And a lot of people are like, man, like you just got it all together. And it's like, well, I don't have it all together, but I did have a good example. And I'll kind of end with this. Whenever I went to Teen Challenge, the rehab program I went to first, he was really big on getting me there. But the second time so I went through Teen Challenge for a year and I relapsed the day I got out. About 6 months later, I was like, I need to go back to that same program because I had relapsed, and I was admitting it to my family. And my sister, my mother, and my godmother, they all were like, well, like, should you go somewhere else? Like, it didn't work the first time. But my dad, he was like, no, like, you do it. Because what he understood was that I was finally choosing for myself to do it. And he knew that that was probably more powerful than any other thing. And so he supported me in that, right? And so he was always the type of guy that, like, whenever you chose to commit to something, like, he would support you however he could. And so I am blessed to have had someone like him. Again, he was human. There's definitely things that I didn't like, that I choose not to live a certain way today, you know? And I think my kids will probably have something about me like that. But also, there's so many good things. And that day of that funeral really changed how I looked at life, because I saw the fruit of it. I didn't have to wait till my funeral. I saw the fruit of someone's funeral who lived a certain way, and it had an impact on people. And so I just want to share that story with you guys. I try to relive it because it was so powerful. The day was still surreal. It was one of the wildest days of my life. But not because it was the funeral of my dad, but because of that experience of being like, oh dude, like my dad had an impact, and it wasn't through social media or YouTube or any prominent public platform. It was through the consistency of showing up, the consistency of helping people, and then just doing the job right. So just want to encourage you guys with that as I reflect. I want to share that with you. Hope you find that valuable, and I'll see you guys later.